This graphic is more than 10 years old, and I'm still amazed with the production Anthony Davis was putting on the court in his solo year at Kentucky. And it had me thinking of why no one is still talking about just how good Anthony Davis was as a freshman, so stay tuned while we revisit Anthony Davis' journey to Kentucky, his dominance on both sides of the ball as the #1 freshman in the country, and his most memorable performances and hype leading up to the 2012 NBA draft. Born in Chicago, Davis initially played at Prospective Charter School, a small school not known for athletic programs, and for the first few years of his high school career, Davis was largely under the radar of scouts and national attention, as Prospectives didn't have a high-profile basketball program or play in competitive leagues. But everything changed for Davis' junior year, where he experienced a massive growth spurt, shooting from around 6'2" to 6'10" in a matter of months. This dramatic change in height transformed his game as he maintained his guard-like skills while developing into a dominant big man. During his senior year, Davis averaged 32 points, 22 rebounds, and 7 blocks per game, earning himself a spot as the #1 ranked player in the class of 2011 by multiple recruiting services. Despite the lack of team success, Davis' individual performances propelled him into the national spotlight, and his reputation grew further, where he played in prestigious events like the McDonald's All-American Game and the Jordan Brand Classic. And by the end of his high school career, Davis had committed to the University of Kentucky, setting the stage for his rise in college and eventual stardom in the NBA. Kentucky's head coach John Calipari had a proven track record of developing NBA-level talent, especially for high-profile players with Davis' skill set. Calipari's one-and-done system, where elite players would often spend just 1 year in college before entering the NBA draft, was appealing to Davis, who had his sights set on a professional career. The Wildcats were assembling a powerhouse roster, and Davis saw an opportunity to fit in with the team that could dominate college basketball. He would be able to play alongside other talented players such as Michael Kidd-Gilchrist, Terrence Jones, and Darius Miles, allowing him to thrive in a system that would maximize his unique skill set as a versatile big man. At Kentucky, Davis made an immediate impact on the defensive end, and his shot blocking ability became his hallmark. He finished the season with 186 blocks, setting an NCAA freshman record, and just to put that in perspective, Shaquille O'Neal in his junior year at LSU only recorded 157 total blocks. His shot blocking presence anchored Kentucky's defense, which was ranked amongst the best in the nation. Davis' ability to alter shots without fouling allowed his teammates to play more aggressively on the perimeter, knowing he was behind them to clean up any defensive lapses. While Davis is most oftenly remembered for his defensive brilliance at Kentucky, his offensive game was equally impactful. Though he wasn't a high-volume scorer during his lone season at college, Davis displayed incredible efficiency, versatility, and basketball IQ on the offensive end, contributing significantly to Kentucky's national championship run in 2012. Davis averaged 14 points per game on 62% shooting from the field, making him one of the most efficient players in the country. His offensive game was predicated on high percentage shots, and he had a great ability to capitalize on opponents around the basket. A key factor in Davis' offensive dominance was his adaptability, and having played as a smaller guard before his growth spurt, Davis retained the ball handling and perimeter skills of a smaller player, making him uniquely versatile for a big man. While he primarily operated in the paint, he could also face up defenders while knocking down mid-range jumpers, and his ability to stretch the floor forced opposing big men out of the paint, opening up lanes for Kentucky guards to drive to the basket, and this dual threat made Davis a matchup nightmare. And Davis' dominance extended to the offensive glass, where he grabbed just over 3 offensive rebounds per game. His length and athleticism allowed him to rise above defenders and convert second chance opportunities at a high rate. Whether it was tipping in a missed shot or securing an offensive rebound to reset the offense, Davis' presence on the board provided Kentucky with additional scoring opportunities. There were many games during his freshman season where his full skill set was on display, such as a 1-point victory versus rival school North Carolina, and Davis' stat line was 14 points, 7 rebounds, and 7 blocks. In one of the most highly anticipated non-conference games of the season, Kentucky faced a North Carolina team stacked with future NBA talent, including Harrison Barnes, Tyler Zeller, and John Henson. The game was tightly contested, but it was Davis who delivered the most memorable moment, with just under 10 seconds remaining and Kentucky leading by 1. Davis blocked a potential game-winning shot by John Henson, using his incredible wingspan to seal the victory. Though his scoring was solid, it was Davis's defensive presence that won the game for Kentucky and solidified his status as a game changer. Following that performance, Davis had another spectacular night on January 17th versus Arkansas. His stat line was 27 points, 14 rebounds, and 7 blocks. And in this dominant SEC victory, Davis had the best offensive performance of the season, where he set a career high. Davis was unstoppable around the rim, finishing multiple alley-oops, putback, and transition dunks, and his efficiency was staggering as he shot 10 of 12 from the field. And this game highlighted his full offensive potential, showcasing not just his defensive skills, but his ability to take over games on the other end as well. Davis had another dominant performance in the paint on February 11th versus Vanderbilt. His stat line was 15 points, 7 rebounds, and 7 blocks, and Kentucky's road game against Vanderbilt proved to be one of their toughest challenges of the regular season, as Vanderbilt kept the game close until the final minutes. Davis was again the difference maker, particularly on the defensive end, where he blocked 7 shots and effectively shut down Vanderbilt's inside game, forcing them to rely solely on jump shots. And on the offensive end, Davis contributed 15 points, including key baskets down a stretch that helped Kentucky hold off a late Vanderbilt rally, and his clutch play in a hostile environment further demonstrated his poise and leadership as a freshman. Anthony Davis' first crucial game in the March Madness tournament was on March 25th, which was the Elite 8 game versus Baylor. His stat line was 18 points, 11 rebounds, and 6 blocks. Davis faced Baylor's imposing frontcourt of Perry Jones and Quincy Acey, but despite their size and athleticism, Davis dominated, leading Kentucky to the Final Four. His ability to finish around the rim and control the paint was too much for Baylor to handle, and this game emphasized Davis's all-around impact, as he was both the leading scorer and the defensive anchor for Kentucky. After the win versus Baylor, Davis and the Kentucky squad found themselves matched up versus Louisville on March 31st. Davis' stat line was 18 points, 14 rebounds, and 5 blocks. The Final Four matchup against in-state rival Louisville is one of the most anticipated games of the season. With a trip to the national championship on the line, Davis once again rose to the occasion and he was dominant on both ends of the floor, finishing with 18 points, 14 rebounds, and adding 5 blocks for good measure. Louisville had no answer for Davis as he controlled the paint and grabbed key rebounds. His performance powered Kentucky past the rival and into the championship game, solidifying his reputation as the best player in the country. And it all came down to one final game for Davis to prove he could perform under the brightest lights. On April 2nd, Kentucky faced Kansas in the national championship game. Davis' stat line was 6 points, 16 rebounds, 6 blocks, 5 assists, and 3 steals. While Davis' scoring in the national championship game against Kentucky wasn't prolific, he finished with only 6 points, but this performance still stands out as one of the most memorable, as Davis dominated the game in nearly every other way. Davis' defensive presence had Kansas struggling to find any rhythm offensively, with Davis altering nearly every shot that came his way. Despite not being the leading scorer, Davis was named the most outstanding player of the tournament, showcasing his contribution went far beyond putting the ball in the basket. By the time Anthony Davis declared for the 2012 NBA draft, he was the consensus top pick, and the hype surrounding his transition to the NBA was immense. After leading Kentucky to a national championship and earning nearly every major individual accolade, Davis was seen as a generational talent with potential to dominate the league on both ends of the floor. And in the months leading up to the NBA draft, comparisons between Anthony Davis and some of the NBA's greatest big men became a regular talking point. His defensive dominance drew parallel to Hall of Famers like Bill Russell and Hakeem Olajuwon, and like Russell, Davis was viewed as someone who could anchor a defense and serve as a backbone of a championship team. Despite all the hype surrounding him, Davis remained focused and humble in the months leading up to the NBA draft, and his preparation involved refining his skills he would need to succeed at the NBA level. While his defense was already elite, Davis worked on expanding his offensive game, improving his post moves, mid-range shooting, and adding strength to his slender frame. His preparation included a series of intense workouts designed to stimulate the physicality and speed of the NBA game. The excitement surrounding Anthony Davis peaked on May 30th in 2012 when the New Orleans Hornets won the NBA lottery, securing the rights to draft Anthony Davis with the first overall pick. The Hornets had just finished with a record of 21-45, and the opportunity to draft Davis was seen as a turning point for the franchise that had recently traded its star player Chris Paul. And on June 28, 2012, Anthony Davis' dream became true when he was officially selected by the New Orleans Hornets with the first overall pick in the NBA draft.